So here we're going to look at enlarging on a grid. So this is where we do not have a center of enlargement yet. We're just trying to enlarge. So we'll use this enlarging technique as we go through because the center is just going to show us our position, and if we know how to enlarge already, it'll save us time. So step one, when we're enlarging, we're going to count/label how long each side is. So notice I didn't even read the question yet. I don't care about what the question does. Every single time I'm going to count and label. So here, I'm going to label just the distance of the big squares. So we could label that there's 2 small squares and 4 big squares, but I'm going to choose easier, 1 and 2. So we want to now look at our question. So we enlarge the shape by the scale factor of 2. Okay. This means our scale factor, we can think of this as a multiplier. Okay. Good old technology. Okay, so we can think of this as a multiplier, so we're going to take each of those measurements and multiply. Okay, so here, I'm just going to do this down here because I got lots of room. 1 times 2 is obviously 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So you probably are thinking, well, that's really easy. That's just some really simple multiplication. Yeah, and that's all it is with enlargements. So now, draw the new enlarged shape with the measurements calculated. Because we do not have a center, we don't have any specifications of where it has to be. We can draw it anywhere. So all we know is that across the top there, that has to be 2 units. And then down the side, it has to be 4 units. So we can, once you have all 4, we know that we're supposed to look for a rectangle, so we don't actually have to measure out the other points, we just have to connect them, just like we would any rectangle. And we're done. So moving on, we'll look at another example here. So looking at the left example, we want to enlarge the shape by a scale factor of 3. So once again, we want to label what our sides are. So here, let's just do both of our examples at the same time. So here we'll label this one 1 and this one 2. This one has a little bit more on it, and this is where we'll just label a lot of this. We might not use every single length, because as you notice, some of these are on diagonals, and they're a little bit harder to be able to draw in, but they can still help us if we know how long they should kind of look. So here, on the left shape, we want to enlarge by a scale factor of 3, so that means we're going to do 1 times 3 for our top. So our top and bottom will be 3, and our left and right sides, well, we have to do 2 times 3, so they'll be 6. And then for our measurements over here, we have a scale factor of 2, so we know that our anything with a 1 will be 1 times 2, so it'll be 2. Anything with a 2 will be 2 times 2, which is 4. And lastly, the 3 we have on that side will be 3 times 2, so it's going to be 6. So for the left example, I'm just going to draw the lines right away because we know that across the top it should be 3 units, and along the sides it'll be 6. And just connect our lines. Like so. So, and now we look at our right shape. So we're enlarging it by a scale factor of 2. I'm going to choose to make mine kind of in the bottom left corner, so that way we might be able to fit it and not overlap. but it doesn't really matter if it does overlap our pre-existing shape. So that is going to be my bottom left corner. I know going up this side, I have to go 6. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll make a little dot. Then I'm going to go back down to the bottom. I know that 1 is going to become a 2. And then notice how it's this diagonal is kind of 2 to the right, 2 up to make that diagonal line. So instead of 2 to the right, 2 up, we're going to go 4 to the right and 4 up. And we'll make a little dot right there. Now we know that we have to go, well, 4 back in because it was 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4 back in. And then if we look at this diagonal now, then it should be 1. So now it's supposed to be 2. So yes, it does span 2 diagonal or 2 horizontal and 2 vertical. So at this point, you can grab your straight edge out and start drawing in your lines. So notice you can always go back and check, make sure. If you want to do them in a little bit different color, do them in, say, red, you can go back and check. Make sure that you have the right lengths. So I could say that that is 2, that's 4, that's 4, that's 2, and that's 6. And you could just kind of compare your measurements and say, well, if I divide those, do I get a scale factor of 2? Yes, I do. So at this point, there are 3 practice questions for you to try. If you'd like to pause your video now and then press play when you're ready to continue, and we'll go through the answers from there. All right, well, welcome back. So we're going to look at enlarging the shape by the scale factor provided. So first thing we want to do is kind of give some measurements to some shapes. So our first one, that is 3 and 2. So we know we can do our little calculation. 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 times 2 is simply 4. So our new shape for this one, it should be 6 wide and then 4 up or down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 4 up and down. Once again, once we're done that, we can just connect our shape to make a rectangle. Next one we're going to look at is looks like an arrow, doesn't it? So it doesn't matter. Just provide some measurements on it, anything that can help us redraw it. So here, this is 1, because even though it doesn't land on the actual grid, we know that it's a half block either direction. So it's 1 upwards, 1 upwards here. Here, it's 1, and here it's 1. So really, we just have to do 1 times 2 is equal to 2. Now drawing this could be a little bit more difficult, but we don't have to draw in those half axes like we were given. We can draw 1 there and there for our bottom, so they actually land on the darker lines. Now instead of going 1 up, we're going 2 up. And then on these sides, didn't note those ones, but that is just a half. So a half, if we times that by 2, we're just going to get 1, right? So we know we're just going to go 1 block to each side. Give our sides. Lastly, our last point, well, it was 1 up, so it's going to become 2 up, and it's right in the middle. So with the more complex shapes, they just take a little bit more time, so just be careful. Once again, at the end, we want to connect our lines, make sure that they're straight, so you don't have to go back and do them like I am. There we go. So you can always visually check enlargements to make sure they kind of look like the same image, because if we didn't draw the arrow quite like that, it would be squished on top or squished on the sides. So kind of do a visual check afterwards can help. So last one we have to go through. Well, we will have a scale factor of 3 here. So we're going to do label our shape. We have one there and one there. So we only need to have 2 lines because it's a triangle. We can just connect the third. So 1 times 3 is equal to 3. So we're going to make a point on our graph, go up 3 units, go back to that point, go right 3 units, and then we're just going to connect our 3 dots to form our enlarged triangle. Right. So at this point, we are done enlarging on a grid. I will see you in the next video where we continue on enlarging.